Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. Welcome back here on this beautiful Monday, start of the work week here, July 17th, 2023. It's about 1:43 in the PM out here in California, where it's still cooking. 104 degrees here at my place currently. Latest activity here on the globe looks like a 4.0 into the region of the Middle America Trench. That's going to be in the red flag here in that area near Mexico. That has seen some large-scale activity here within the past week. Also a 1.2 up into the Alaska region. So what do we got after all this earthquake activity throughout the weekend? Let's take a look at what's brewing out here across the areas. Now up here into the Alaska region, we did see that 7.2 coming in. Looks like that has stirred up slightly some elevated activity here across the Aleutian Trench on a broader scale. Further to the west, around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, did have a 4.0 overnight. A little bit of activity here into the subduction zone, about 55 kilometer deep, 4.4 from this morning as well. And one from yesterday, it's the 4.8, pretty deep into the, looks like the northern end of the Japan Trench. So elevated activity, it looks like, throughout this region. Still waiting on some large-scale movement here across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. We're talking about above a 7. It's been awfully quiet. And the major accumulated slip rate here, we should have seen something bigger by now, but it seems like it's holding off for whatever reason. We'll definitely continue to watch this area. Across the Filipino plate, around the East China Sea, we had a 5.0. That's on the northwestern edge here of the Filipino plate. That earthquake coming in a few hours ago, this morning it looks like, 10 kilometers deep. Also here across the Mariana Trench, one earthquake, 4.2. This one's pretty deep, though. Looks like 495 kilometers deep. It looks like that was prior to this 5-pointer up here, so we're getting some adjustment, some movement. Westward pressure gradient going on there across the region. Now, the Philippine plate here is going to be in the red in this area. When we see a lot of deeper earthquake activity here across the Mariana Trench, which sits right about here, and the Izu Trench up north here, that deeper activity does one or two of two things. It can go and transfer that pressure gradient over here to the western side of the plate where the subduction zones are as well, with a reinforcement, so to speak, by the Eurasia plate. This is a major region for some large-scale activity. But if things are just kind of continuing to build up steam there, a lot of times we'll see some further adjustment back upstream along the trenches. But in this case right now, it looks like we're seeing that westward shift in activity over here around the East China Sea. So we'll keep an eye on this region that is showing some movement here following the deeper activities there around the Mariana Trench. 5.4, this earthquake from this morning, it looks like, in the Philippines area, 10 kilometers deep. A couple other smaller quakes there from yesterday. We did have a 5.6 yesterday as well into the Indonesia Islands area. But things look like, at least on the USGS side, things slowing down slightly. Although, right around where that 5.6 struck yesterday, notice a swarm of activity kicking up here. Those are all pretty much pancaked on one another. So it looks like, potentially, we could be looking at some larger scale movement taking place here in this area. That's a lot of earthquake activity for just a 5.6. As far as aftershock movement goes, I don't think this is aftershock activity, so we'll continue to watch this region. That's a lot of activity. Let's see here. Across the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu area, this is our quiet zone once again. Looking at the earthquakes that took place, we got one from yesterday and one from today. The latest, a 4.8 into the Kermadec Islands, New Zealand, 10 kilometers deep. New Zealand not showing too much here on the USGS side of the map. Looks like on the Earthquake 3D globe, couple threes stirring up down there. This is another area that needs to pay attention due to the lack of seismic activity out here. Stand by here for just a second. Okay, I lost it. Too many links there in my bookmarks. All right. So this is the GeoNet servers that monitor earthquake activity across New Zealand. 3.4 1 hour ago. That's one of the quakes there on the globe showing up. Looks like split between the North Island and South Island area. Right smack dab here on the, I believe that's just on the plate boundary. We're just off the plate boundary there between the Pacific and the Australia plate. It's going to be this region right here. Maybe it looks like it's just off of it slightly. But either way, looks like some folks did report feeling this earthquake, mainly weak to light shaking, while someone way up north reported an extreme shaking event there outside of Auckland. All right, moving on to the rest of New Zealand here. Let's check out the earthquake drums and see what we have going on here. There is that, well, that's not the three-pointer. That was something from yesterday. I believe that was that. I think they had a four-pointer mixed in there yesterday, somewhere North Island. The three-pointer today is going to be right here, closer to the South Island area. Notice that little signature. But aside from that, nothing major going on here across New Zealand currently. A look at the volcano drums here across New Zealand. See if we got any major swarming going on. Taupo super volcano looks quiet for now. Not seeing anything major kicking up here across New Zealand area. They did put out a little article here last week, and that's the GeoNet servers, as to why so many earthquakes. That's a lot. Talking about 20,000 earthquakes. We locate over 20,000 earthquakes a year at GeoNet. You know, it's obviously a major plate boundary. There's been a lot of little earthquake activity, but you know, no large-scale movement. And we've been chatting about this a lot, how it's been lacking for adjustment. Now remember, ones and twos, yeah, those are earthquakes, but we haven't seen anything really major above that here in the past couple months. Here's the last 30 days. I'm really surprised USGS is reporting that 2.7 from the 25th of June. But as you can see, at least there's only been a handful of fours here across the area. Now, it's possible there could have been more from the GeoNet servers, but this is what the USGS is reporting. Either way, you were to add a handful more of fours on here on the map, that still doesn't account for the needed adjustment that should take place here across New Zealand, considering all the activity up north and down south here. There's been a lot of activity here across this plate boundary with very minimal adjustment across New Zealand. South America area, 6.6 from yesterday. It was a pretty big earthquake. Haven't really seen too much aftershock activity there. Look at the earthquake 3D globe. Not a whole lot, even on the EMSC globe here. Maybe a handful of smaller quakes, but the adjustment looks like it has been made further up north. Just a mixed bag of earthquake activity between these two earthquakes. 5.3 there was stirring up. Let's see here. Oh, they're showing a 4.3. That is quite a downgrade. 4.3 to a, oh, maybe this one's not even on there. Let's see, when did this take place? Today at 2:58 a.m. So maybe it's this one, 2:58. There we go, 4.8. USGS reporting a 4.8, 5.3 there from the EMSC model. Either way, a pancake of earthquake activity here across the Peru-Chile Trench, so continue to watch that. The Puerto Rico area still showing some movement up here. This is the, well, it shows outside the Leeward Islands area, 4.2, 43 kilometers deep, right around the Puerto Rico Trench. This area has seen some large-scale movement away from the plate boundary with that large 6.6 there about a week ago. And we've been watching a cluster of earthquake activity here across the Puerto Rico Trench region. And I still think that's leading to something bigger out here. We'll have to watch this to see if the swarm picks up here around the Puerto Rico Trench, because that is set up in a major dynamically hazardous area. The Caribbean plate's an awfully small plate. It's just getting squeezed around and pushed and bullied, and you know, it's not doing good. So there's a lot of earthquake activity that can take place here across the subduction zone areas. Puerto Rico Trench, one of them. Got to watch this area up here. Very capable of producing some large damaging earthquakes. All right, states. What do we got here? Oklahoma still swarming out here, looks like, outside of Prague, Oklahoma. Although most of this is from yesterday. We did have one after midnight, a 4.4. Looks like a little bit of relief of earthquake activity out there currently. Some movement across Texas as well, also south or northwest of Snyder, Texas. Now, I know this area does have some, well, let me zoom in and you guys can be the guess, right? What do you think those are? Campsites galore? No, those are, that's a jungle of oil fields. Where do we go? Where do we go, George? I think it might be any of these. Either way, some of this earthquake activity occurring very close in proximity to these massive oil fields. There's quite a few tanks out here. So this must be a hot spot in terms of, you know, the whole process that involves the oil operations out there. Yellowstone National Park looks like they did add some of the activity from this weekend, mostly smaller microquakes. Now, let's see what we got here for today's activity. Make sure we got the latest informational statement here. And these are going to be the seismograph stations that are monitoring activity here across the Yellowstone. Looks like there's a... It's hard to tell on this one. Maybe northwest corner here. That activity is from last night. The 6 point... What was it? 6.6 down in the Argentina area. That shows up and coincides with the timestamp here on the Yellowstone seismograph stations. But there is a couple smaller quakes here, it looks like, being reported locally there in the red spikes there across Yellowstone. Not a big swarm, definitely not a big swarm. No unusual activity, no magma movement that I could see of in all my years of studying Webby quarters and this volcano, the super volcano. Just some small earthquake activity, and it looks like for the most part it is being reported here across the USGS stations there on the map. 1.7 there, about 5 o'clock this morning. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet conditions. Northern California, a little spotty, nothing major going on here. Mostly smaller microquakes across the Northern California area. Handful of smaller quakes here from... these are from today. Most of them are, it looks like, across the Pinnacles area. That's the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. They call it the creeping segment due to the fact that it really doesn't lock up. It's just a kind of a slow easement between the two plates here. That does create some smaller quakes like this, and it's very common to see activity. While the rest of the plate boundary, the fault system here, the San Andreas Fault, tends to lock and build up quite a bit of strain. This one just kind of creeps along. Ridgecrest area, seeing a little activity as well. A couple ones out there across the Garlock Fault as well. Now, let's see, the San Jacinto Fault Zone is a pretty large fault system that runs parallel for the most part with the plate boundary, along with the Elsinore Fault. These two, 3, 4, there's a couple different. You can see them listed up here on the graphs. These are kind of where the brunt of the pressure tends to build up against the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. And that, of course, we're still watching that, right? We've been watching that for quite a while, but it's a ticking time bomb, so to speak here. I think, you know, I think we're guaranteed to see this in our lifetime, for the most part, even in my lifetime. I'm not going to say my age out here, but, you know, ever since I was a kid, my parents said, you know, waiting for the big one down south. One day LA is going to have the big one, you know, and that's the big one is 8.1 is the maximum potentially observed magnitude here across the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. And it's been over 300 years, and a lot of that has to do with water accumulation, the Salton Sea area, certain regions that used to have a lot more water than they do now, which have somewhat delayed. They believe it's somewhat delayed the big one down here, but it didn't stop it. It's not going to stop it from coming, but we'll continue to watch that, right? This is a major area here along the west coast that needs some watching for sure. Alaska, we checked that out. Hawaii, any adjustments going on out here across the Big Island? Doesn't look like it. Only 10 earthquakes being reported. A quick glance here at the hazard notification system from the USGS. This is the HVO. Looks like, well, that's from 4 days ago. This is regards to that 4.6 that happened north of the Big Island due to the bending of the oceanic crust and the underlying brittle mantle due to the weight of the Hawaii Islands. But that was about it. Aside from that, looks like all volcanoes are currently as is. No major changes being observed there across the region for now. Space weather activity, what do we got here? I notice Kevin hasn't adjusted these yet, but they are working. From the SDO site, they have, looks like they've updated their certificate, which is good. My browser wouldn't even let me visit this site. It didn't even give me an option to continue over the past couple days because of a certificate issue with this site. And that's, probably in the wise decision to not venture into websites that your computer says could be attacking you, as far as hackers go. So let's look at the current imagery here. This was put out today, UTC time there. Say goodbye to this massive sunspot region. That's been obviously a huge spectacle of a sunspot over the past week or so. It's about ready to drift off to the southwestern limb of the sun, and we are left with a handful of sunspots, but for the most part, this area right here looks interesting in terms of dynamic complexity within this core of that sunspot area. I think we got to watch this one, and it is pretty much center disk, center portion of the sun. When this thing lines up here with the Earth-Sun plane, anything that does blast off could be a bullseye effect, so to speak, here on Earth. So we'll watch this regional sunspot. We do have one growing up here on the northern hemisphere of the sun. We'll watch that, but I think for the most part, this area needs some watching. Notice these little very dynamic, intense areas of that sunspot region. Also around the southeastern limb, we've got a couple new sunspots coming in. A look at the UV filter array here. This is the current imagery. Yes, it is. And this one right here. Notice a little brightness feature here. Look at those magnetic lines up here. That's beautiful. Sun is a beautiful object, right? Love studying solar studies. One of my favorite topics. Here's that newer regional sunspot here on the southeastern limb that we'll watch, but I think this one right here, not too often do we see them perfectly centered like that, but that one may need some watching. Right now we have a 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 50% chance, X flare still remains somewhat elevated at 20%. We are currently flaring slightly, so we are picking up a little bit of solar activity into the ionosphere. Only minimal effects there, centered, it looks like around the eastern Pacific here, just east of Hawaii. Let's see, so a little bit of aurora stirring up currently right now, as you can see at the polar regions. That is due to, well, I think one of the CMEs may have hit us. This article was put out from yesterday, but we were expecting a little bit of G1 conditions. It looks like it may be peaking up to at least G1 or above. That's also got to do with the current solar wind stream, far as the tilt in the BZ component, the interplanetary magnetic field, could be allowing a little bit more solar wind into the areas, way up into our atmosphere than normal. A lot of times we get this tilt coming in across the magnetic field. Where's that? I wanted to check that one station out here real quick. Is this it? No, that's not it. It is the... Oh, yeah, the geoelectric field. I kind of wanted to see what was happening here. When we get these little auroras or large solar flares. Now, this is just a small aurora, or the small CME that hit us, but it is stirring up some conditions there up in the polar regions. And it looks like, at least according to this geoelectric field 1 minute data, there's some higher areas, looks like around Denver area, down south as well, Northern California where I live as well, a little bit of higher, not extreme, it looks just like higher than normal. Now this is just a thing used by, well, it could be electricians or whoever. It says the geoelectric field is a measure of the induction hazard to artificial conductors such as electrical power lines that results from geomagnetic activity and can be used to estimate the amount of current induced by integrating along the conducting pathway. And this could be for power plants, it could be for, who knows who. But it's kind of interesting to watch and see how the electrical grid out here can be affected due to potential overloading into the system. Right now we are not seeing that, but it just looks a little bit more elevated than the past couple times I checked that. Pretty neat to look at. Either way, let's see here. There's the Aurora forecast for now. Probably not going to see it here in the northern hemisphere. Maybe up around this other area of the world, or if you're in Antarctica, looks like they got a beautiful show going on potentially down there. I don't know if I have any plans to visit down there. I think it'd be cool, but cool, literally, nice and cold. Actually, I would prefer that than 105 right now. Let's see what else we got. I think that's about it, folks. Let's check out the weather forecast here for today. A broad area of severe potential. Nothing major, just a slight risk in the severe weather category, with a very minimal 2% chance for tornado probability around Illinois. It looks like mostly Springfield area, Springdale, Joplin, Rogers, those areas. Keep your eye on the sky. It's probably already occurring out there, considering it's getting towards the late afternoon time period. Main threat's going to be some wind and some damaging hail within these areas today for the for that forecast. Seen a couple sprinkles out here in Northern California last night. That was about it. Some lightning out here as well. Unfortunately, it did spark up a couple fires out here just west of me into the Coast Range. So hopefully they get these under control. We are looking at some excessive vegetation due to all the rainfall and the snowfall throughout this last winter, so that allowed everything to grow drastically, and now this high heat is just drying everything out, and it's a huge fuel hazard in terms of wildfires out here along the west coast. We've been pretty lucky. I've enjoyed my blue sky. I don't really enjoy the heat, but I do like the blue clear sky. I'm not into all the smoke, so hopefully those go away, get a handle on them before they turn into something drastic. Luckily the wind isn't blowing too much out here, but again, we do have large amounts of fuel and dry conditions prevailing out here along the west coast, and it looks like that's going to be the case for the extended future. Check out this symbol real quick here. High pressure, of course, going to be in the orange or brown. That is not going away out here across the west coast. In fact, anything it looks like that will continue to deepen throughout July and even into August. What we want to look for is some low pressure differences up here, but everything looks fairly stable, even way out. So that means some incredible hot conditions out here prevailing throughout the month of July. In my forecast, at least the next 10 days, all above 105. In fact, it should be around 110, 112 towards the end of this week again here where I live, and it's just brutal. It is not cool. Electricity bill is going to be out of the roof. But I'd rather be cool and spend a little bit more on my electricity bill than be hot and miserable. It's just not worth it. So no signs of any major pattern change. There is a deep low pressure trough system here into the Gulf of Alaska that could cool down the Pacific Northwest, but it will hardly affect anything out here across the west coast. Just looking absolutely brutal. As far as any hurricanes entering into the Gulf of Mexico, let's take a look. We'll put this into motion here. We've been pretty lucky out there into the Gulf. Look at that. I've got a hurricane spinning off there. See that coming in through the side? Look on your southeast or the right corner right there. That's a hurricane. Looks like it may hit Florida, but that's a ways out. That's definitely a ways out. That's a strong hurricane if that's the case. But these weather models are not one to write a forecast on. Definitely not. Not that far out. If this was maybe next week, I would be, 50-50 chance there that this could play out. But this is way into the first week of August, and things can change. But we'll watch this because it is, it's getting that time of year. We got some warmer than normal sea surface temperatures out here. The Gulf of Mexico is cooking like a stew, and that's perfect environment for some tropical development. We'll continue to watch that. All right, folks. Clear sky, well, at least clear, calm conditions here on the live seismograph stations for now. You guys stay safe out there. Enjoy your Monday. Stay cool if you can. Hopefully the electrical grid holds up. If not, well, I got generators. I will fire them up if I have to, because no way am I going to cook Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later tonight. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here. Had a lot of new viewers here over the last couple days. Please subscribe and like and share the video. It does help out this channel tremendously. We're getting really close to 100,000 subscribers. And when that happens, we're giving a big giveaway out to 10 people. So make sure you help this channel grow. And we'll see you guys back here later tonight with the Monday night update. Take care, everyone. Peace out.